the other people onto the conference now for the panel session. So if the two Peters could join us. Hi, welcome back. I don't know if you were listening to that, but if you have any comments on that last question that Mark just gave an answer, please feel free to comment. Otherwise, we'll go on to the next question. No comment. It's
yeah, I think it's a really tough one, maybe, and actually I know less about it certainly than Mark does, but I think indeed the key issue is how do you get a consistent steer globally. We've seen, in my presentation, it's very, it's split up per country. You see, even with the IMO, right? So you have the 0.1% VLSFO for the Baltics and for North Sea and for North America, and then you have the 0.5% requirement. So there's already a distinction there, and I think from my perspective, the key. We had a quick email interchange also before, Mike, but I think Mark laid out the issues really well. I really liked the chart with the cost of adding HVO and FAME, which attracts water, which on a ship is not necessarily that great. It's just cost prohibitive, right? So what are the alternatives to use to decarbonize? And I think that is going to be a huge challenge technologically, commercially, and then trying to get it implemented across the globe. Hope that helps.
Yep, that's good. Thank you. Okay, so let's move to another question. So I think we had a question during your presentation from Peter van Wessel, asking if you perform maintenance and repair on the tanks that you build, or do you subcontract these services?
We do both. We got our own maintenance engineers, and we got our operators, of course, taking care of day-to-day things, which are easily to do ourselves. And we rely on good suppliers and good contractors. Yeah.
Okay, that's just going through the list here. For the maximization of value of current assets, are you considering how data can have a big role or contribution to the value of your current assets?
Yes, it will be very important. If you relate it to maintenance, you can reduce downtime time by having good sensors, or in-tank inspection by a robot, or predicting where the market will go. So yes, will be very important. Maybe we can store it one day, this data. But yeah, I think it's crucial. Yeah.
Okay. What else do we have here? No, we have a few more coming in. So we have a question to all three of you panelists from Raman Kavalchuk. Would your presentation slides be available to the participants after the conference? Oh, sorry, yeah, I think that's already answered. That will be answered by Stock Expo. That just came in. I didn't get a chance to read it properly. So again, I think there's a question about the regulations involved and who regulates the regulators. Aaron van Kampen wanted to know. Anybody want to take that on?
With regards to what in particular, Mike?
Well, it's just come up on the line, so it could be from any of your, I don't know, that's all the information I have, but I assume it's come up probably from Peter Zonneveld's presentation, from what I can see.
Yeah, I can maybe, so without the full context of the question, let me just hazard a guess. So if it's about, because this is a very important topic, which is the sustainability, and how do we know, how do we get proofs of sustainability of our feedstocks, for example, and certification of palm feedstock, making sure that if we get used cooking oil, that it is indeed used cooking oil coming from a restaurant somewhere, wherever. So there are. This is a really big topic, to be honest. But maybe just to try to summarize it, there are very thorough processes around tracking all those feedstocks, the production of this product, and then the sales of it to the end consumer. This is done very much through self-regulation, so it's not imposed by the government. However, we use, there's international organizations that track it. So, for example, you have ISCC, predominantly used in Europe. You have NABISI in Germany. You have, the US has their own one. So there's all these systems that basically track and verify that where people say that the product comes from, that it indeed comes from there. We at Neste have even additional audits to that. So we don't just take, we follow the ISCC processes, of course, but we will also do our own audits and our own checks to really verify that everything is above board. So there's a lot of checking being done to really make sure that if you look at feedstocks, and if that's indeed the question, and sustainability, that it is very properly checked. And we have indeed seen some cases in the market where fraud has occurred. So from our perspective, it is really important to really track this very clearly and to have good processes in place.
So does that mean that from your feedstock perspective, you can't really play the spot market so much? You can't get you have to have contracts with reputable people that have all this background checking that's gone on beforehand?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. We forego a lot of opportunities because we just don't want to do business, with random parties.
Sure.
Yes, there's, only when people are there's a lot of, it's verification where they come from, know your counterparty, of course, but then the whole sustainability bit, no child labor, and so on and so on. So it's very thorough analysis of our suppliers to ensure that everything is above board. Yes.
And another question from Igor Lesgovok, names, Govgok, I think Govko. Sorry, Igor. But he wanted to know what you meant by pre-treating feedstocks. You mentioned pre-treating feedstocks before. What actually do you have to do to these feedstocks before you can use them?
Yeah, so I'm not a technical person, but I'll try to describe it nonetheless. Basically, before you can, so some of the feedstocks that we buy, let's take a used cooking oil that could be of the right quality that we put straight into our refining process. However, they might, be completely off spec, and if we would put them straight into the refinery, it would damage our catalyst, and it would really, stop our refining process, and we'd have big issues. So more and more, we with waste and residues, we're kind of pushing the boundary all the time. So it's great to have, let's use used cooking oil as an example, to have used cooking oils that are completely on spec. But very often, if you push the boundary and try to find more used cooking oils, you start to get, really bad cooking oils with water in it and all that kind of stuff. So before you put that in the refinery as a feedstock, we pre-treat it. That could be, on-site or off-site. We have in the Netherlands, for example, in Sluiskil, we have a pre-treatment plant. So we will actually put the feedstocks through the pre-treatment plant to make sure that they're then suitable to put into the refinery process and that don't damage the catalyst.
Okay, understood. Yeah, that's good. Let me just have a look here. I would finding some more suitable questions here. I think from the coming back to Mark, maybe on the LNG side, Mark, there has been an increase. I totally agree with you. There's been quite a big increase, but it's still relatively small. and it's still very much related to the container lines, the liner trade. You know, it's which is, I guess, it's because there's so few infrastructures still, but it's still ships that are going from one area to another area on a steady run that need to know that they can source the LNG where they're going. So a lot of the ships trading worldwide, you know, that are not on liner trades would still have difficulty, I think, which is why you haven't seen it taken up. So outside of that, do you really think that's going to expand much more, or do you think it's just going to be always related to liner trades?
I think, look, it's a good place to start, and then you know, as we were saying, as the infrastructure grows, then you know the refueling options become more evident to other classes of vessel, such as tankers, moving bulk goods, and so on. However, you know, most of the forecasts are talking about uptake for the bunker sector of 30 to 40 million tons by, depending on which forecaster you look at, to it by 2030 or 2040. Now, bunker fuel demand globally is around 200 to 300 million tons at the moment. So we're looking at something like 10% of that in 10 years' time at the least. So it's going to be be I mean, amounts like that are going to have their impact, but it's maybe not going to be that groundbreaking, but it is, you know, we you know, if you're operating a fleet of vessels, you're probably going to be attracted to it because it's something that gets you down this pathway, and the IMO targets are going to be looking at the operator of a fleet and what they're achieving.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's going to be. I personally, I don't think it's going to be a solve all question at all. It's going to be part of a number of different. Fuels.
I mean, for the main, you know, one of the main reasons it can't be a silver bullet is because it's still a fossil fuel. So it gets you out, and look at Neste's good stuff, Peter's good stuff. It's to all intents and purposes 100% renewable. Now, it's expensive compared to these alternatives, but once people have to go down that renewable route, then something which is people look on LNG as being in fossil fuel terms 20% better than a diesel or a fuel oil, but it's still a fossil fuel. It's a genuine difference, but it shows that there's a limit to what it achieves.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. That's good. Okay. We've got another one here. Which markets for renewable diesel are the most promising beyond Europe and the US?
Yeah. I'll get on my crystal ball and
I want to hear the answer to that one as well.
Yeah. You also included it. He did say two Neste Oceano representatives.
Okay. Well, let me have a go at it first, and then Mark, you can follow up on it. I think first of all, to be honest, even I think Europe and the US, to be honest, there's still plenty of opportunity. So what we typically saw, so if you know some of the numbers I showed, we saw huge ambition around renewables in the Nordics, and we see that slowly coming down in Europe, right? So we see, you know, Northwest Europe, Southern Europe is coming on stream, and then Eastern Europe is actually following very slowly. So within Europe, even there's still a lot of opportunity for growth. In the US and Canada, the same thing. So we see the West Coast in the US already quite focused on renewables, and we see that hopefully also indeed, Mark, you mentioned Biden, so hopefully some of this will be moving now eastward. So that I would say that the first thing, right? So there's still a lot of opportunity for growth in Europe and North America. The second area then, which is, you know, Ramon, I see here your question indeed. So we don't. So the short answer would be we don't know exactly yet, but we are exploring. So we are looking into Asia Pacific, for example, as a first area. And we see that, a lot of it is about environmental awareness and really the will to change and to make a difference. And so the countries we see at the moment that are worthwhile spending some time on, not to sell actually, which sometimes as I'm a sales VP, so sometimes a bit frustrating, but we do a lot of market development and a lot of public advocacy in those areas, are countries like, New Zealand, Australia, but also Japan, Singapore. We see things happening in India, but the country is still quite protectionist. And then there's some other countries, potentially South Korea, for example. China is still, it's a huge country, but very slow, very low ambition still at this point. So I think Asia Pacific is a huge area, of course, but we're starting to look a little bit at those countries where we see things happening, and also South America. We're starting to see things happening. So Brazil, Colombia has actually quite high mandates. We're seeing that a renewable diesel plant is going to be built in Paraguay. So things are happening in Latin America as well that we should be tracking. Hope that answers the question.
Thank you. Did anyone else want to comment, Mark? Or?
Peters is very informed from an HVO producer. Mine might be a bit more devil's advocate. So one thought, one devil's advocate thought is palm oil. And palm oil is going to get increasingly legislated out of markets like Europe. And I wouldn't be surprised if other markets follow, which then raises the question, well, what will the palm oil producers do? I dare say they will not want to close in their production. So taking a positive out of that, what it might do is open up biofuels markets in some countries that want to take a step in that direction, but aren't going to be quite as purist right now because they can't afford to be on feedstocks. The second one is, it would be intriguing if some of the countries that are the major UCO suppliers, such as China, decided to start to make their own product. That could change the dynamics quite a lot. And then the other one I kind of wonder about. Peter's mentioned South America, and I would support that comment. The other one I was thinking about was Africa, because in a similar way to Latin America, you've got these places that have huge potential to be more of a breadbasket for the world. Africa is already a major exporter from many of its nation states of edible oils. So it's not too big a leap to think about how there could be further options for biofuels, either feedstocks coming from there or production there one day.
Okay, thank you. And question for you, Mr. Van Vessel, just to keep you from falling asleep there in the corner. We do have one from Android Chopra, who says, do you see a market in hydrogen, and do you have any plans for hydrogen storage tanks?
I was just also reading a question I saw in the chat. What are oil tanking views on using tanks as batteries for storing and releasing electricity? That's a holy grail, how to store electricity. Something is going to happen with hydrogen, and it's all related with synthetic fuels maybe, or other products which can store the energy. Ammonia is mentioned, and methanol. Yeah, we're looking to all these threats, but I cannot give an answer. We are also following the market, so we all see that it's going to happen, but a specific need or demand still needs to be created, or the product needs to be produced. So it's a bit the chicken and the egg. So
sure.
Yes, we look at it, but if you want me to give a sophisticated answer,
there's you have a lot of terminals in Singapore, as you mentioned earlier on. And Singapore now seems to be promoting hydrogen, or getting the government, and so maybe we'll see something there you can get involved in the next few years. But yeah, obviously as the main bunkering hub of the world, I think they want to be certainly look ahead at getting involved in the latest bunkering trends rather than later. I mean, they've already done quite a lot on LNG, as you know. So maybe we'll see that. But we've still got a bit of time. Okay, thank you. What else we got here? Storing it. Oh yeah, the storing and releasing electricity. Okay. Bottom sludge is bottom sludge, and this is again for you, Peter van Wessel. Did you see that? He wants to know handling, storing fuel oils. Is bottom sludge and sediments a large contribution to your own CO2 production? Product less cleaning costs, downtime.
No, I don't think so, because all these numbers are improving, because what we typically saw as waste 5 or 10 years ago now is more and more being recycled, reused, or treated more carefully. I don't think we are a CO2 contributor that much, but also there we look at how we can improve engine efficiency of compressors, or there's less and less waste, or we see less and less products as waste. I think that's a very positive development. So I think all this there is some contribution, but it's all going down. So I think that's positive. So.
And then we got one from Timothy Curl, who basically, as we were saying before about the LNG infrastructure, Mark, he was asking how long do you think it will take the LNG infrastructure for fueling vessels properly to be developed globally?
10 to 20 years.
Yes, I think so as well.
It's I mean, you know, because it's the capital spend across, you know, major sector, as well as you know, and you've got to do it in a demand driven way, as you were saying earlier on, Mike. So yeah, I think it could take that length of time, which is why it probably is going to happen stepwise, like a lot of these things.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think, and it's always going to be major port because of the infrastructure costs. So, you know, you're not going to be seeing loads of little ones in small ports or dotted around Asia or Africa or anything like this. It's always going to have to be the main ports, probably driven by the container trade as well. So main container trade ports, if at the best, I would have thought. But what else we got here? Should regulatory bodies increase pressure on industries to speed up the viability of green fuels? Peter Zonneveld, would you like to take that one first?
Well, I can give you my personal view, but I think, to be honest, I think there's, of course, I think there's you know, this, if I think about this philosophically, because I don't want to kind of nest this horn, here per se, but I think the question, of course, is, do we want to decarbonize? From my perspective, do we want to decarbonize? Yes or no? Is it a good thing to decarbonize, and do we need to combat climate change? And I think if you agree that we need to decarbonize and combat climate change, I think then the question is, how do you do that as efficiently and as effectively as possible? And also, you know, not in 30 years when it's too late, but we need to do it soon, right? So we're going to hit that tipping point probably quite soon. So then, you know, we also know that if you know, a lot of people just, for them, you know, what they have in their wallet is important, right? And if you have the opportunity to buy a product at, if you buy a liter of diesel for $1.50, and you have the option to buy, carbon neutral for $1.70, would you do it or not, right? And some people would, but a lot of people wouldn't. So I think if you therefore regulate it, you are going to be much more successful, and it doesn't become, a free for all, and whoever wants to do it does it, and then 80% of the people don't, but you can make much more of an impact. So should regulatory bodies put more pressure on decarbonization? In my mind, yes. Although let me say that I think in Europe and in the US, they are putting pressure on legislation. The only question now is how ambitious should it be? Can we be more ambitious, right? And what are the solutions and how costly is it? So we just saw, earlier on today that 14% renewable content by 2030 is the current renewable fuel road transport mandate target for 2030, right? In the Nordics, they today already have like 20%, right? Easily. So is that ambitious enough for Europe? So I think it's not necessarily about having the regulatory authorities put more pressure on it. I think we need to look at, is it actually ambitious enough where we are at the moment? And maybe I saw Timothy Curl's question here about the 32. You mentioned, in the US, we've got we're way behind the curve. I would agree in most of the US. I think California is actually, ahead of the curve. They're doing quite well. And the mandate in the 32 billion gallons, I did a quick calculation. I think it's 8 million tons by 2022. I think we would actually see that 8 million tons or 32 billion a little bit later, not 2022, but probably more towards 2025 or so. But yes, I mean, the challenge is huge. And again, it's not only renewable diesel, right? There's a lot of other solutions, and we need to make use of all of them. I hope that helps, Mike.
Yeah, that's very good. Did anyone else want to comment on that? Peter? The other Peter? Sorry, two Peters. Peter Van Vessel or Mark? Would you like anyone else want to comment on that question? Or should we go to the last question, I think, for this? We have one question here, which I think is quite a nice question to finish on. From Charles Paff, he says, to all three speakers, what development excites you most in the near future? Peter Van Vessel, would you like to start with that? What development excites you most in the near future?
Well, we touched upon it, digitalization, use of data. There's a lot of things we can do at our terminals to make it safer, but also to facilitate a bit our life in order to be more flexible to our customer, but on a safely manner and by doing things smarter. And by now that's possible. It's a big job to get it done at terminals because some have been existing already for some decades. But that will be exciting, that data will, or just sensors and automatization will make things possible which used to be difficult, or and it will increase transparency also to customers. So I think that's the most exciting thing I foresee, and besides change and all the stuff we have been talking about all day.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. Mark, most exciting development, or the one that...
Well, apart from the fact I'm having my vaccine later this week.
Congratulations.
But I say that I say that in the context of thinking that we've just come out of a pretty torrid year where we're faced not only with a pandemic but grappling with this big beast called the energy transition. And I mean, I actually see a lot of possibilities. It's quite a confusing landscape at the moment, but I'm sure that pathway will become clearer. I mean, it wasn't my topic today, but for example, in Peter Van Vessel's sector, I mean, just broadening storage into energy storage in its widest sense is something that is going to be with us very soon, I'm sure, if not already. So I don't know. I'm looking forward to a better 2021 than 2020.
Peter Zonneveld, your last. What excites you most about the
Well, if I may, because I find it very hard to choose, Alan, to choose one particular thing. But let me say, on the one hand, I truly am, and this is why I work for Nesta. So I'm truly concerned about climate change, and I think we can all see it. We see the glaciers melting. We see the cold winters, warm summers all over the place, hail in the summer. We just see that everything's off whack. I'm truly concerned about that. However, my glass really is always half full. It's usually flowing over. So I am really excited about the fact that we have a lot of solutions already today. We have a lot of solutions in the pipeline. Things like e-fuels are actually pretty close, right? We kind of have it already. Hydrogen is really close. Electric is very close. A bit more expensive, but we're there, right? We need to solve the battery issue, and maybe we can use Peter's Van Wessel's tanks there as well, somewhere or another. But I think I'm really excited about the fact that we can make a difference, that there are loads of different solutions at this point to really fight climate change. So it's not just one, but I'm really excited by the whole potential that we have to make a difference.
Yeah, that's a great answer as well, Peter. From my point of view, it's just to see it happening. I mean, it's been talked about for a long time, but we're beginning to really see things happening, and that's great. I think it's been nice to get involved in doing something to help clean the planet. Anyway, thank you guys. That's all. That's the end of day one. Thank you for your presentations and for the panel. Margaret, over to you.
I just wanted to reiterate, thank you very much. So some really good questions and great presentation.